Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished checking the engine readings for the third time that morning. At 19 years old, he was the youngest crew member aboard the UCS Denver, but his skills with machines made up for his lack of experience. The exploration ship had been his home for 6 months now, traveling through the outer reaches of human space. "Jake, get up here to the bridge," Captain Lisa Kane's voice came through the intercom. "We've got something interesting on the sensors." Jake dropped his wrench and ran through the narrow corridors of the ship. The Denver was not a large vessel, built for speed and exploration rather than comfort. When he reached the bridge, he found Captain Kane staring at the main screen with a worried look on her face. "What is it, Captain?" Jake asked, sliding into his station at the engineering console. "Take a look," she said, pointing at the display. "Dr. Turner picked up these readings about an hour ago." The screen showed dozens of massive ships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel was at least 3 times larger than the Denver, and their design was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The hulls were smooth and curved, almost like living creatures made of metal and energy. Dr. Alex Turner looked up from his science station. "The ships are definitely not human. The technology readings are off the charts. Whatever built these has science far beyond ours." Captain Kane turned to her communications officer. "Any response to our signals?" "Nothing yet, Captain. But wait." The young woman pressed her earpiece closer. "I'm getting something now. It's a response to our greeting message." "Put it on screen," Kane ordered. The main display flickered and changed to show the interior of an alien ship. Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The bridge was enormous, with tall pillars that seemed to grow from the floor like trees. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, pulsing with soft light. But it was the figure in the center that made everyone on the bridge go silent. She was tall, easily 7 feet in height, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the alien light. Her face was beautiful, but alien, with large eyes that glowed like stars. Long silver hair flowed around her shoulders like water. She wore robes that moved as if they were alive, changing color from deep blue to purple as she walked. "I am Queen Zephyra of the Velkan Empire," she said, her voice deep and commanding. "You have entered our space. Identify yourselves." Captain Kane stepped forward. "I am Captain Lisa Kane of the United Colonies ship Denver. We come in peace, seeking to establish friendly contact with your people." Queen Zephyra's glowing eyes swept across the bridge display, studying each human face. When her gaze fell on Jake, she stopped moving entirely. Her eyes grew wider, and something like surprise crossed her alien features. "Who is that young one?" she asked, pointing directly at Jake through the screen. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. He looked around, hoping she meant someone else, but everyone was staring at him. Captain Kane moved protectively in front of Jake. "That is Jake Morrison, one of my crew members. Why do you ask?" Queen Zephyra moved closer to her own screen, her eyes never leaving Jake's face. Such youth, such intelligence. I can see it in his eyes, the spark of creation and problem-solving. "How old is this human?" 19, Kane answered carefully. The Queen's face lit up with what could only be described as hunger. "Perfect. He will be mine." "Excuse me?" Captain Kane's voice went cold. "The young one. Jake Morrison. He belongs to me now. I claim him as my chosen mate and prize. His intelligence and youth will strengthen my bloodline and serve as proof of my conquest over your species." Dr. Turner leaned forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, Jake is not property to be claimed. Humans do not practice such customs." Queen Zephyra laughed, a sound like crystal bells mixed with thunder. "Your customs matter nothing to me, human. For 1,000 years, the Velkan Empire has taken the finest young minds from species we encounter. It is our way. It is our right." She turned her attention back to Jake, who was trying to hide behind Captain Kane. "Do not be afraid, young Jake Morrison. You will have a place of honor in my court. You will live in luxury beyond anything your primitive world can offer." "He's not going anywhere," Captain Kane said firmly. "Jake is under my protection, and I will not surrender any of my crew." The Queen's beautiful face twisted into something cold and dangerous. "Then you condemn your entire species to destruction. I give you 3 of your days to deliver Jake Morrison to me. If you refuse, every human world will burn. Every human ship will be destroyed. Your species will serve as slaves in my empire." "You can't be serious," Dr. Turner said. "I am always serious about what I desire," Queen Zephyra replied, "and I desire him above all things. 3 days, Captain Kane. Choose wisely." The screen went black. The bridge fell into shocked silence. Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. In the space of a few minutes, he had gone from fixing engines to being the target of an alien queen's obsession. "Captain," Jake said quietly, "maybe I should go with her. If it saves everyone else." "Absolutely not," Kane snapped. "We don't abandon crew members. Ever." Dr. Turner was already working at his station. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from their fleet. These ships could level a planet without much effort." "How many ships?" Kane asked. "Over 200, and more are arriving every hour." Captain Kane sat down heavily in her command chair. "Send a message to Earth Command. Full priority. Tell them we've made contact with a hostile alien empire, and they're demanding one of our people." The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. Jake stared at the blank screen where Queen Zephyra had been moments before. He couldn't shake the memory of her glowing eyes, the way she had looked at him like he was something to be owned. The thought made him feel sick. "Captain," he said again, "I won't let innocent people die because of me." "And I won't let you sacrifice yourself to an alien tyrant," Kane replied. "We'll find another way. We always do." But as Jake looked out at the massive alien fleet surrounding them, he wondered if there really was another way. The ships were so large, so advanced, that the Denver looked like a tiny insect next to them. Somewhere out there, Queen Zephyra was waiting for her answer, and Jake knew that whatever happened in the next 3 days would change the fate of humanity forever. The first attack came 18 hours later. Jake was in the engine room when alarms started screaming throughout the Denver. He ran to the nearest viewport and watched in horror as bright beams of energy struck the human mining station on Kepler 442b. The entire facility disappeared in a ball of white light. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Kane's voice echoed through the ship. "This is not a drill." Jake raced back to the bridge to find chaos. The communications board was lighting up with distress calls from across human space. The Velkan fleet had split into smaller groups and was systematically attacking human outposts. "Report," Kane ordered as Jake took his station. Dr. Turner looked pale. "They're hitting our outer colonies first. Mining stations, research bases, small settlements. They're not trying to conquer them. They're just destroying everything." "Any casualties?" Kane asked. "The mining station had 300 people," the communications officer reported. "No survivors detected." Jake felt sick. 300 people were dead because Queen Zephyra wanted him. The weight of it pressed down on his chest like a heavy stone. "Captain, incoming transmission from the lead Velkan ship," came the report. "Put it through." Queen Zephyra appeared on the screen again. This time she was standing in what looked like a war room with other aliens moving around behind her. They were tall like her, but their skin was darker blue, and they wore military uniforms instead of flowing robes. "Captain Kane?" the Queen said, her voice calm and pleasant, as if she hadn't just ordered the murder of hundreds of people. "I trust you witnessed our demonstration. This is what happens when I am denied what I desire." "You killed innocent people," Kane said through gritted teeth. "I removed obstacles," Queen Zephyra corrected. Every hour you delay costs more human lives. Where is my Jake Morrison? Jake stepped forward before Kane could stop him. I'm here. Please stop killing people. If you want me, then let's talk about terms. The Queen's face brightened like a child getting a present. Ah, there you are, my beautiful young human. So brave, so caring for your species. This is why you are perfect for me. What exactly do you want with him? Dr. Turner interrupted. Queen Zephyra turned to address the doctor. Your species interests me, Dr. Turner. Humans are young, crude, primitive, yet you solve problems in ways my people never consider. You adapt and improvise where we would follow protocol. You create new solutions instead of using old ones. She gestured to Jake. This young one has the strongest problem-solving abilities I have seen in any species. His mind burns with creative fire. In Velkan culture, claiming such a prize proves one's worth as a ruler. He will father children who combine human creativity with Velkan power. That's barbaric, Kane said. That is survival, the Queen replied. The Velkan Empire has existed for 3,000 years because we take the best from every species we encounter. We grow stronger while others grow weak. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. What about what I want? Don't I get a choice? Queen Zephyra laughed. Choice? You are 19 years old, barely more than a child. What could you possibly know about the larger universe? I offer you power, luxury, and purpose beyond your imagination. You should be grateful. I'm grateful for my freedom, Jake shot back. The Queen's smile faded. Freedom is an illusion, young Jake. Everyone serves someone stronger. The only choice is whether you serve willingly or as a broken slave. She turned back to Captain Kane. You now have 2 days remaining. Continue to defy me, and I will begin attacking your major colonies. The blood of millions will be on your hands. The transmission ended. Captain Kane was quiet for a long moment, staring at the blank screen. Finally, she turned to her crew. Options? We could try to run, suggested the navigation officer. Jump to FTL and hide in deep space. They'd just take it out on civilian populations, Dr. Turner said, and their ships are faster than ours anyway. What about fighting? Jake asked. Everyone turned to stare at him. Captain Kane shook her head. Jake, they have over 200 ships. We have one small exploration vessel. I don't mean fighting them directly, Jake said, moving to the main display. I mean understanding them first. Dr. Turner, you said they follow protocol instead of improvising. What if that's a weakness? Dr. Turner frowned. What do you mean? Think about it. Queen Zephyra said they've been doing the same thing for 3,000 years, taking the best from other species, following the same patterns. What if they can't adapt when something unexpected happens? Captain Kane leaned forward. Go on. Jake pulled up the sensor readings of the Velkan fleet. Look at their formation. It's perfect. Mathematical. Every ship in exactly the right place according to some pattern. They're not thinking creatively about this situation. They're just following their standard conquest procedure. You want to do something they won't expect, Dr. Turner said, understanding dawning on his face. Exactly. Queen Zephyra thinks she knows how this will end. Either I surrender or she destroys humanity and takes me anyway. But what if there's a third option she hasn't considered? What kind of third option? Kane asked. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. I need to learn more about Velkan culture, their laws, their traditions, their weaknesses. There has to be something we can use. The ship's computer has information on dozens of alien species, Dr. Turner offered. Maybe there are records of other encounters with the Velkans. Do it, Kane ordered. For the next several hours, Jake buried himself in research while the rest of the crew tried to contact Earth Command and coordinate with other human ships. What he found was disturbing. The Velkans had encountered 17 different species over the past 1,000 years. Each time, their queen or king had chosen a young member of the species to claim as a mate. Each time, the species had either surrendered the individual or been destroyed. But there was something else. In 3 cases, the claimed individuals had eventually challenged their captors to ritual combat. 2 had lost and been executed. 1 had won and gained limited freedoms for their people. Ritual combat, Jake muttered, staring at the screen. What was that? Dr. Turner asked, looking over Jake's shoulder. The Velkans have laws about ritual combat. If someone challenges the authority of a ruler, they can demand a fight according to ancient traditions. If they win, they get to make demands. That doesn't help us, Kane said. You're 19 years old and have never been in a real fight. Queen Zephyra has probably been training for combat for centuries. Not me fighting her, Jake said, excitement growing in his voice. Me fighting her champion. According to this, if someone claims another person as a prize, that person can challenge the claim through combat. If they win, they get to set the terms of their people's relationship with the Velkan Empire. Dr. Turner whistled softly. That's incredibly dangerous, Jake. Velkan warriors are genetically enhanced. They're bred for fighting. It's also our only chance, Jake replied. Queen Zephyra expects me to either surrender or hide. She doesn't expect me to challenge her directly. Captain Kane stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the alien fleet. Even if you're right about the ritual combat laws, how do we know she'll honor them? Because she's proud, Jake said. She thinks her empire is superior to everything else. She believes her champion will win easily. Her ego won't let her refuse. Kane turned around. And if you lose? Jake met her eyes steadily. If I lose, I was going to end up as her prisoner anyway. At least this way, we have a chance. The captain was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded. Start preparing your challenge. We'll send it in the morning. As Jake began working on the formal combat challenge according to Velkan law, alarms sounded again. Another human outpost had been destroyed. More innocent people were dead. Jake clenched his fists and kept working. Queen Zephyra thought she held all the power in this situation. She was about to learn that humans didn't follow anyone's rules but their own. The transmission reached Earth just as Queen Zephyra was destroying another human research station. President Helen Carter watched the recording in her emergency bunker beneath the Capitol, surrounded by her top military and scientific advisors. "Play it again," she ordered. Jake Morrison's young face filled the screen for the 3rd time. "Your Majesty, Queen Zephyra, I am Jake Morrison, the human you have claimed as your prize. According to the ancient laws of the Velkan Empire, I formally challenge your claim through ritual combat. I demand the right to face your champion in single battle, with the terms of humanity's relationship with your empire as the stakes." President Carter paused the recording. "General Murphy, what's our military assessment?" General Chris Murphy, head of Earth Defense Forces, shook his head grimly. "We're outgunned by a factor of 1,000 to 1, Madam President. Our entire fleet combined couldn't scratch their main battle group. If this boy's plan fails, we have no military options left." "Dr. Rodriguez," Carter turned to her psychological warfare specialist. "Your analysis of the Queen's behavior?" Dr. Maya Rodriguez consulted her notes. "She shows classic signs of narcissistic personality disorder, but amplified by absolute power. She's never been denied anything she wanted, which makes her predictable in some ways. She'll likely accept the challenge because refusing would suggest weakness." "And the boy's chances of survival? Against a Velkan champion? Nearly 0. President Carter stood and walked to the large map showing human colonies across the galaxy. Red dots marked the ones that had already been destroyed. There were too many red dots. "Madam President," her communications director called out, "we're getting a response from the Velkan Queen." "Put it through." Queen Zephyra appeared on the main screen, and President Carter could see the cruel amusement in her glowing eyes. "So, The young human thinks he can challenge me. How delightfully naive. Will you honor his request according to your laws? Carter asked directly. Oh yes, I will honor it completely. According to our ancient traditions, Jake Morrison has the right to face my champion in the arena of judgment. When he loses, as he surely will, he becomes mine without question, and humanity will serve the Velkan Empire as a conquered species. And if he wins, Queen Zephyra's laughter filled the room. He won't. But if by some miracle he defeats my champion, I will honor the traditional terms. He may set the conditions for his people's relationship with my empire. We need details about the combat, Carter said. Single combat, no weapons except what can be found in the arena, fight until one surrenders or dies. I choose Champion Vorthak, who has never lost in 200 battles across 50 years. Your boy will face him in 3 days on the neutral moon of Nexus 7. The transmission ended. General Murphy immediately began barking orders. Get me Admiral Stone's fleet. I want our best ships at Nexus 7 as observers, and contact Colonel Wright at the training facility. We need combat instructors on a ship to Nexus 7 immediately. Meanwhile, aboard the Denver, Jake was trying not to panic. The reality of what he had committed to was starting to sink in. He was going to fight an alien warrior who had been bred and trained for combat for decades. Jake, Captain Kane called him to her ready room. I've been in touch with Earth Command. They're sending help. What kind of help? Combat trainers, medical specialists, and equipment. Amy Sullivan is also coming. Jake's heart jumped. Amy had been his best friend since childhood and was one of the most brilliant engineers he knew. Amy? Why is she coming? Because, Kane smiled for the first time in days. She convinced President Carter that if anyone could build something to give you an edge in combat, it would be her. 6 hours later, Jake watched as a fast courier ship docked with the Denver. Amy Sullivan came aboard with a team of specialists and several crates of equipment. At 20 years old, she was only slightly older than Jake, but her reputation as an innovative engineer was already legendary. Jake Morrison, she said, giving him a quick hug. What have you gotten yourself into this time? Trying to save humanity, he replied. No pressure or anything. Well, good thing you called in the best help available, Amy grinned. Let's see what we're working with. Over the next day, Amy and her team worked around the clock, while military instructors put Jake through intense combat training. The trainers were honest about his chances. You're quick and smart, Colonel Wright told him after a brutal training session. But you're not a warrior. This Vorthak has been fighting since before you were born. So how do I beat him? Jake asked, wiping sweat from his face. You don't fight like a warrior, Wright replied. You fight like an engineer. Use your brain, not your muscles. Meanwhile, Amy was deep in the ship's workshop, surrounded by advanced materials and experimental technology. The arena has no weapons, she muttered to herself, but it doesn't say anything about what you can wear. Dr. Turner found her there at 3 in the morning. What are you building? Amy held up what looked like a normal jumpsuit. Adaptive armor. It looks like regular clothing, but the fibers can harden on impact and the suit has micro-motors for enhanced strength. It's not much against a Velkan champion, but it might keep Jake alive long enough to think of something clever. The Queen will notice if he has technological advantages. Not if she thinks it's just human clothing. The technology is invisible unless you know what to look for. On the second day, intelligence arrived that changed everything. Elder Kiros, a high-ranking Velkan noble, sent a secret message to Earth Command. Many of us are tired of Queen Zephyra's obsessions, his recorded message stated. Her behavior grows more erratic with each conquest. Some in the Empire believe it is time for new leadership. If the human boy somehow defeats Vorthak, we will support him against the Queen. President Carter called an emergency meeting. This changes the equation. We're not just fighting for Jake's freedom anymore. We might be looking at a Velkan civil war. General Murphy nodded. If we can split their empire, we have a real chance of survival. Back on the Denver, Jake was reviewing everything they knew about Velkin combat rituals when Captain Kane brought him the intelligence report. You mean there are aliens who want to help us? Jake asked in surprise. Some of them, yes. But Jake, this makes your fight even more dangerous. If you win, Queen Zephyra will probably try to kill you anyway, rather than honor the agreement. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then we need to make sure I don't just win. We need to make sure I win in a way that destroys her credibility completely. What do you mean? I need to beat Vorthak so decisively that everyone watching knows human intelligence is superior to Velkin brute force. I need to make it clear that their empire is built on weakness, not strength. Amy looked up from her work. That's a tall order, Jake. I know, but it's the only way to save everyone. On the morning of the third day, the Denver arrived at Nexus 7, a barren moon that served as neutral ground for interstellar disputes. The arena was a massive circular structure built into the moon's surface, with viewing areas for thousands of spectators. Ships from dozens of species had arrived to watch the combat. Word had spread quickly that a 19-year-old human was challenging the Velkin Empire's most feared champion. Jake put on Amy's special jumpsuit and checked his equipment one last time. It wasn't much compared to what he was facing, but it represented the best of human engineering and creativity. Remember, Colonel Wright told him, Vorthak will expect you to fight like every other species they've conquered. Don't give him what he expects. And remember, Amy added, squeezing his hand, you're not alone in there. Every human who ever solved an impossible problem is with you. As Jake walked toward the arena entrance, he could see the massive crowds gathered to watch. In the VIP section, Queen Zephyra sat on a throne that seemed to be made of living crystal, her glowing eyes fixed on him with hungry anticipation. Somewhere in those crowds, Elder Kairos and his allies were watching too, hoping for a miracle. Jake took a deep breath and stepped into the arena. The ground was covered in sand, with scattered rocks and metal barriers providing the only cover. Across from him, a door opened, and Champion Vorthak emerged. The Velkin warrior stood 8 feet tall and was built like a living mountain. His blue-black skin gleamed with cybernetic enhancements, and his forearms ended in claws that could tear through steel. Scars covered his body like a map of every battle he had ever won. The crowd fell silent as the two opponents faced each other. Jake looked up at the giant alien and felt his knees go weak. Then he remembered the 300 people who had died at the mining station and the thousands more who would die if he failed. He straightened his shoulders and got ready to fight for humanity. The arena referee, a tall insectoid alien from a neutral species, stepped between Jake and Champion Vorthak. Its voice echoed through the massive chamber as it announced the rules. Combat begins when the gong sounds. No outside interference. Battle continues until one combatant surrenders or dies. Victory terms will be honored according to ancient Velkin law. Jake's hands were shaking as he looked up at Vorthak. The champion was even more terrifying up close. His 4 arms moved independently, each one powerful enough to crush steel. Cybernetic implants glowed beneath his skin, enhancing already superhuman strength and speed. Little human, Vorthak spoke for the first time, his voice like grinding stone. Queen Zephyra has ordered me to keep you alive but broken. When I am finished with you, you will beg to serve her. We'll see about that, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The gong sounded. Vorthak moved faster than Jake thought possible for something so large. One massive fist slammed into the sand, where Jake had been standing a split second before. Amy's suit worked perfectly, enhancing Jake's natural reflexes and allowing him to dodge the blow. Jake rolled behind one of the metal barriers as Vorthak's other 3 arms reached for him. The champion's claws scraped deep grooves in the metal, sending sparks flying. Running already? Vorthak laughed. "This will be over quickly." The champion jumped over the barrier with surprising grace, landing right in front of Jake. Two massive hands grabbed for him. But Jake activated the suit's strength enhancement and managed to duck between Vorthak's legs. As he rolled past, Jake grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Vorthak's eyes. The champion roared in anger and swung blindly. One arm caught Jake in the ribs, sending him flying across the arena. Jake hit the ground hard and felt something crack in his chest. The suit's armor hardened on impact, probably saving his life, but he could taste blood in his mouth. "First blood to the champion," the referee announced. In the viewing stands, Queen Zephyra leaned forward with excitement. "Excellent! Break him slowly, Vorthak. I want him to understand his place." But in another section, Elder Kairos watched with different eyes. "The human is faster than expected," he murmured to his aide. "And he thinks while he fights." Interesting. Jake struggled to his feet, analyzing what he had learned. Vorthak was incredibly strong and fast, but his attacks were predictable. The champion fought like someone who had never faced real opposition. His technique was perfect, but rigid. "You cannot run forever, little human," Vorthak called out, stalking toward him. "Face me with honor." "Honor?" Jake spat blood into the sand. "There's no honor in fighting a battle you're guaranteed to win. But you're right. I can't keep running." Jake stood his ground as Vorthak charged. At the last second, he dropped to the ground and swept his leg at the champion's ankles. It was a move no Velkan warrior would ever use, something beneath their dignity. Vorthak stumbled but didn't fall. However, his perfect balance was broken for just a moment. Jake used that moment to grab one of the scattered rocks and hurl it at a weak point he had noticed in the arena wall. The rock struck an old support beam, which groaned and shifted. A section of the wall above Vorthak began to crack. "Clever," Vorthak admitted, "but not clever enough." The champion grabbed Jake by the leg and lifted him into the air. Jake felt bones grinding together as the powerful grip tightened. Vorthak drew back his other three arms to deliver a finishing blow. But Jake had been counting on this. As Vorthak held him up, Jake used the suit's hidden tools to spray a chemical compound onto the champion's cybernetic implants. Amy had designed it specifically to corrode Velkan technology. Vorthak roared as his implants began to spark and malfunction. His enhanced strength flickered, and Jake broke free from his grip. "Impossible!" Queen Zephyra shouted from her throne. "What trickery is this?" "Not trickery," Elder Kairos said quietly. "Intelligence." Jake landed hard but rolled to avoid Vorthak's weakened but still dangerous swipes. The champion was no longer moving with perfect coordination. His cybernetic enhancements were failing one by one. "You dare use poison against me?" Vorthak snarled. "Not poison," Jake corrected, circling carefully. "Just good engineering." Now the real fight began. Without his technological advantages, Vorthak was still larger and stronger than Jake, but he was no longer untouchable. And Jake was starting to see patterns in how the champion moved and thought. Vorthak fought like every battle was a formal duel with rules and expectations. He attacked in sequences that followed Velkan military doctrine. It was probably perfect against other Velkan warriors or the few species that fought in similar ways. But Jake had learned to fight from human instructors who emphasized improvisation and creative thinking. When Vorthak charged again, Jake didn't dodge left or right as expected. Instead, he ran straight at the champion, sliding between his legs and using the suit's strength enhancement to grab 2 handfuls of sand as he passed. This time, instead of throwing the sand at Vorthak's eyes, Jake threw it at the weakened wall support. The added weight was just enough to bring down a section of loose stone. Vorthak spun around just in time to see several large rocks falling toward him. He raised his arms to block them, leaving his lower body exposed. Jake tackled the champion around the knees with everything he had left. It was like hitting a stone wall, but Vorthak was off balance from blocking the falling rocks. The giant alien fell backward and Jake rolled clear, but Vorthak recovered quickly, kicking out with both legs. One foot caught Jake in the stomach and sent him flying again. This time, Jake didn't get up immediately. He lay in the sand, gasping for air, while Vorthak climbed back to his feet. "Enough games," Vorthak growled, advancing with all four arms raised. "Time to end this." Jake looked up at the towering alien and realized he had one chance left. Amy's suit had one more hidden feature, something she had built in case everything else failed. As Vorthak reached for him, Jake activated the suit's emergency system. Every piece of technology in the jumpsuit overloaded at once, creating a brilliant flash of light and a pulse of electromagnetic energy. Vorthak staggered backward, temporarily blinded. His remaining cybernetic implants sparked and died completely. But the surge also destroyed Jake's suit. From now on, he was fighting with nothing but his own human abilities. Jake forced himself to his feet one more time. Both fighters were now breathing hard, covered in blood and sand. But something had changed in the arena. The crowd was no longer cheering for Vorthak. They were watching in fascination as a young human who should have been dead kept finding ways to survive and fight back. "You are stronger than expected, human," Vorthak admitted. "But strength is not enough. I have trained for 50 years. You have trained for 3 days." "You're right," Jake said, wiping blood from his mouth. "You have 50 years of training, but I have something you don't." "And what is that?" Jake smiled through his pain. "I have 19 years of learning that the impossible is just another problem to solve." Vorthak charged one final time, using pure strength and speed without any technological enhancement. But Jake was ready for him. Instead of fighting the charge, he used it. As Vorthak reached for him, Jake grabbed onto the champion's arm and used Vorthak's own momentum to swing himself up and around behind the giant alien. Before Vorthak could react, Jake had wrapped his arms around the champion's throat in a chokehold that Colonel Wright had taught him. Vorthak thrashed and tried to reach behind himself, but Jake held on desperately. It was a battle of endurance now. Could Jake maintain the hold long enough for Vorthak to lose consciousness, or would the champion's superior strength break free? For long seconds that felt like hours, the two fighters struggled. The arena was completely silent except for the sound of heavy breathing and the scrape of feet on sand. Finally, Vorthak's struggles grew weaker. The mighty champion dropped to one knee, then the other. His forearms fell to his sides. "Do you surrender?" Jake gasped. Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was filled with something Jake had never heard from a Velkin before: respect. "I surrender," he said. "The victory is yours, Jake Morrison of Earth." The arena exploded with sound. Creatures from dozens of species cheered and roared their approval. They had just witnessed something unprecedented, a young human defeating the Velkin Empire's greatest champion through intelligence, determination, and courage. But in the royal viewing box, Queen Zephyra's face was twisted with rage. She stood up from her crystal throne, her eyes glowing with fury. "No!" she screamed. "I will not accept this! Guards, kill them both!" Elder Kiros stepped forward. "Your Majesty, you cannot dishonor the sacred combat. It would mean civil war," another Velkin noble said, rising from his seat. All around the arena, Velkin nobles and military officers were choosing sides. Some remained loyal to their queen, but many others were looking at Elder Kairos with new respect. Jake helped Vorthak to his feet, and the two former enemies faced Queen Zephyra together. "According to your laws," Jake called out, his voice carrying clearly through the arena, "I have won the right to set terms for humanity's relationship with your empire." "I reject your laws!" Queen Zephyra shrieked. "I reject your victory! You will be mine, or you will die!" But as her guards moved to obey her orders, they found their way blocked by other Velkin soldiers who had decided that honor meant more than blind obedience. The Velkan Empire was tearing itself apart, and the battle for humanity's future was just beginning. The arena became a battlefield, as Queen Zephyra's loyal guards clashed with Velkan soldiers who supported Elder Kairos. Jake found himself in the middle of a civil war that was spreading beyond the arena to the fleet of ships orbiting Nexus 7. "This way, human," Vorthak said, grabbing Jake's arm with surprising gentleness. "The Queen's madness has gone too far. I pledge my service to you now." Jake stared at the massive warrior who had nearly killed him minutes before. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you fought with honor while she has none," Vorthak replied. "You defeated me fairly, using only your intelligence and courage. She would have you murdered rather than accept lawful defeat." Together, they fought their way through the chaos toward where Captain Kane and Amy were waiting with a group of human security officers. Energy beams flashed overhead as the Velkan civil war intensified. "Jake!" Amy grabbed him as soon as he reached them. "Are you hurt?" "Nothing that won't heal," Jake said, though he was pretty sure he had several broken ribs. "What's happening up there?" Captain Kane pointed to the viewing screens that showed the space battle raging above them. "Queen Zephyra called in her personal fleet to destroy all witnesses. But Elder Kairos has convinced about half the Velkan military to rebel against her." "And the human ships?" "Admiral Stone's fleet just arrived. They're helping the rebels against Zephyra's forces." Jake watched the battle and realized this was exactly what he had hoped for. The Velkan Empire was splitting apart, giving humanity a chance to survive and grow stronger. But the immediate danger was far from over. Queen Zephyra's forces still outnumbered the rebels, and she was determined to capture or kill Jake before the situation got completely out of her control. "There," Amy pointed to an emergency transport tunnel. "That leads to the spaceport. We can get off this moon before Zephyra's troops surround us." As they ran through the tunnel, Jake could hear the Queen's voice echoing through the arena's communication system. "Bring me the human boy. Anyone who stands in my way will be executed for treason." "She's completely lost control," Vorthak observed. "A true leader would accept honorable defeat and negotiate terms. Her desperation proves she is unfit to rule." They reached the spaceport to find more fighting. Velkan rebels were trying to secure ships while Queen Zephyra's loyalists attempted to prevent anyone from escaping. The Denver sat in the middle of the chaos, with Captain Kane's crew defending it against boarding attempts. "Dr. Turner," Kane called into her communicator as they approached the ship. "Get the engines ready for immediate departure." But before they could reach the Denver, a squad of Zephyra's elite guards blocked their path. These soldiers were even larger than Vorthak, with advanced armor and energy weapons. "Surrender the human," their leader demanded, "and we will allow the rest of you to live." "I don't think so," Jake said, stepping forward. He was exhausted and injured, but he had an idea. "I have a better offer." "What offer could you possibly make?" Jake raised his voice so other Velkans in the spaceport could hear him. "I offer you the chance to serve a leader who wins through intelligence instead of fear. Join the rebellion against Queen Zephyra and help build an empire based on cooperation instead of conquest." "You think to rule us, human boy?" "I don't want to rule anyone," Jake replied. "I want to work with you. Humans and Velkans together, learning from each other, growing stronger together instead of fighting endless wars." Some of the guards looked uncertain. They had just watched this young human defeat their greatest champion through pure determination. Maybe there was truth in his words, but their leader raised his weapon. "Enough talk. You come with us now or you die." Before he could fire, Vorthak stepped between Jake and the guards. "He defeated me in honorable combat. By our laws, I am bound to protect him." "You would betray your own species for this human." "I would honor our laws and traditions, which the Queen has abandoned," Vorthak replied. "Choose your side carefully. This boy represents the future. Zephyra represents only the past." The tension stretched for long seconds. Then, one by one, several of the guards lowered their weapons. "We choose honor," their leader said finally. "We join the rebellion." More Velkin soldiers throughout the spaceport began switching sides as word spread of Jake's victory and his offer of partnership instead of conquest. The tide of battle was turning, but Queen Zephyra herself was not finished. Her personal ship, massive and bristling with weapons, descended toward the spaceport. Her voice boomed across the area. "If I cannot have my prize, then no one shall. I will destroy this entire moon rather than accept defeat." Jake looked up at the approaching warship and felt a chill of fear. Zephyra was completely insane now, willing to kill thousands of her own people just to eliminate him. "She's powering up planet-killer weapons," Dr. Turner reported from the Denver. "She really means to destroy the moon." "Can we stop her?" Jake asked. "Not with conventional weapons," Admiral Stone's voice came through the communicator. "Her ship's shields are too strong." Jake thought frantically. There had to be something they could do. Then he remembered something from his research on Velkin technology. "Amy," he called, "do you still have any of those corrosive compounds you made for my suit?" "A few samples, why?" "Because Velkin ships have the same cybernetic systems as their warriors. If we can get close enough to apply the compound to their shield generators..." "The shields would fail," Amy finished, understanding immediately. "But how do we get close enough?" Vorthak stepped forward. "I know the design of the Queen's ship. There is a maintenance port near the main shield array. But it would be a suicide mission to reach it." "Not if we're smart about it," Jake said, his mind racing through possibilities. "Captain Kane, can the Denver simulate a critical malfunction? Make it look like we're disabled and drifting?" "Already done it," Kane replied with a grin. "We'll appear to be just another piece of debris." As the Denver drifted toward Queen Zephyra's massive ship, Jake and Amy worked quickly to prepare their sabotage mission. It was incredibly dangerous, but it was their only chance to stop the Queen before she destroyed everyone on the moon. "Jake," Amy said as they prepared to leave the ship in a small maintenance pod, "if we don't make it back..." "We will," Jake said firmly. "We've made it this far." The maintenance pod, disguised as floating wreckage, drifted alongside the Queen's ship until it reached the port Vorthak had identified. Jake and Amy attached their compound to the shield generator housing and activated the corrosion process. Within minutes, the massive warship's shields began to flicker and fail. "Now!" Admiral Stone's voice came through their communicators. "All ships, target the Queen's vessel!" The combined fire of human ships and rebel Velkin vessels struck Queen Zephyra's ship. Without its shields, the mighty warship took critical damage. "Impossible!" Zephyra's voice screamed across all frequencies. "I am the chosen ruler! I cannot be defeated by primitives!" But her ship was already falling toward the moon's surface, engines failing and hull breached in a dozen places. Elder Kairos's voice replaced hers on the communication channels. "To all Velkin forces, I declare Queen Zephyra unfit for command. She has violated our sacred laws and brought dishonor to our empire. I claim leadership of our people and call for immediate peace negotiations with the human representatives." The civil war ended as quickly as it had begun. Zephyra's remaining loyalists laid down their weapons rather than continue a hopeless fight. 3 days later, Jake stood in the conference room of a neutral space station, facing Elder Kairos and representatives from both human and Velkin governments. He was still bandaged from his fight with Vorthak, but he felt stronger than ever. "The terms are simple," he said, addressing the assembled diplomats. "Humans and Velkins work together as equal partners. We share technology and knowledge. We defend each other against common threats. And no species is ever again enslaved or conquered by either of us." Elder Kairos, now the elected leader of the reformed Velkin Republic, nodded approvingly. "These terms honor both our peoples. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation begins." Amy squeezed Jake's hand under the table. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually saved humanity." Jake shook his head. "We did it, all of us together, and that's what makes us strong." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-Vulcan research station, watching ships from both species working side by side to build something new. At 20 years old, he had become humanity's youngest ambassador, helping to oversee the alliance that was already changing both civilizations for the better. Vorthak approached him, the former champion now serving as head of station security. "Any regrets, Jake Morrison?" Jake thought about Queen Zephyra, now imprisoned on a remote world, still ranting about her lost empire. He thought about all the people who had died in her attacks, and all the species she had enslaved before humanity stopped her. "Only that it took so long for our peoples to find each other," he said finally. "Think about what we could have accomplished if we'd been working together from the beginning." "Perhaps," Vorthak replied. "But some things are worth waiting for." As Jake watched human and Vulcan engineers collaborating on their latest project, he smiled. The future was going to be incredible, and humanity would face it not as conquered slaves or lonely wanderers, but as equal partners with friends among the stars. The alien queen had declared that he would be hers, claiming the youngest human as her own. Instead, he had claimed something far more valuable: freedom and friendship for all humankind.